Alright everyone, it's time for today's first video. Got to talk about Biden's polling because it's actually really funny, and funny in part because I had expected his polling numbers to go down quite a bit after the Afghanistan debacle, but they're still dropping. They've actually gone further than I expected. He's got almost a 5-point gap opening up. He's deep underwater now. The funny thing is, his polling, his approval level, despite all the push polling, despite nonstop positive coverage by the legacy media, is now at about the same level that Trump stayed at for quite some time, is sort of in the intermediate sense. The funny thing is, of course, Trump was reckoned to be the less intelligent version of Goebbels. So where does that leave Joe Biden? And that's funny because, of course, he hasn't even been in his asterisk position for an entire year. So it's not looking good for little Beijing Joey. Now, first and foremost, if you're watching this video on YouTube, keep in mind there will be a pinned comment down below on YouTube with links to 4 other video hosting sites that I use. I make 2 exclusive videos every day there that don't go on YouTube, so get your full clank. Otherwise, you're not going to imbibe enough caffeine. It's going to be a really big problem. You're going to have to chug the Monster energy drinks or something. Or some of these. By the way, these are like the best. I think they still have aspartame in them, which is, I don't even think in the US you're allowed to use it. Although it might be a subtly different chemical, but maybe I'm just loading myself down with cancer for all I know. Anyway, supposedly the most popular president ever, 80 million votes. He's doing such a wonderful job. Everyone agrees. It's like, the day that he was sworn in, when Joe Biden first stepped off the plane, you'll remember this. I think it was CNN at the time. Oh, when he opened the door and started descending the stairs, it seemed like it got a little bit brighter out and the rain slacked off and all of a sudden it was a sunny day. And it's sort of like the kind of thing you get in North Korean propaganda. Like, there is quite a similarity. North Korean propaganda, it's like, well, Kim Jong-un was born of a unicorn, it was a virgin birth, and there were rainbows all over North Korea, the Pyongyang, the day that he was born. It's very flowery and hyperbolic, and I have a feeling a lot of North Koreans don't take it seriously either. In fact, I'm beginning to think that Americans take the obvious lie-style propaganda more seriously than like people in North Korea and Iran and places like that. I have a feeling that it's more like a silent agreement that it's horseshit. They just don't say anything because they don't want to be gulagged. And it's sort of a training exercise in being a jackbootlicker. It's sort of, hey, we're going to tell you obvious shit, and you're not supposed to react, and if you do, we're going to kill you, so it's good mental training for you to be lemmings. You'll follow orders because you're perpetually afraid. They're trying to do that in the United States, of course. You have a social credit score system ramping up, and COVID passports. Now they're saying that maybe they'll fire health professionals, people with medical degrees, by the way, if they have wrong think opinions on certain medical topics. So it's definitely a brave new world situation. It's rather interesting that it's all happening so quickly. Huge amount of pushback here in the Netherlands. I guess the mayor of Amsterdam's essentially saying there will be non-enforcement of the COVID passport they're still debating over. So here, people doing fairly well. Biden, meanwhile, not doing well. And Afghanistan is only part of it. Keep in mind that Afghanistan is sort of like a Katrina moment in the sense that things were already fucked up, but stubbornly in polling he was still above water until something that was so fucked up and so obviously so, there was no real way to spin it. Now you have a situation where even more than characteristically, Joe Biden doesn't even answer the fucking questions of the captive media that adores him. These people love him. If he's 5 points below in polling, sitting at just above 45, with his approval deep underwater and his disapproval approaching 50%, and that's despite deliberate missampling in polling, sometimes plus 20 Dem or something, and cutting out independents of various groups, which lean heavily against him. So, big problem in the polling. And then that's the more accurate side of polling. Now, the metrics for these in groups, when they're individually studied, make a little bit more sense. The aggregate at this point is being dragged several points in Biden's favor. If despite that he's still that far underwater, it's more than just Afghanistan. The American people don't have enough of an attention span generally, nor do most populations in the world, to give a shit about something that happened halfway across the world for very long. So the fact that he's still falling, it's not Afghanistan. I think he'll take somewhat of a hit from the Milley debacle. General Milley ostensibly committed treason, And Biden saying, well, I still have great faith in him. Well, that's a little bit of a problem now, isn't it? Isn't that a little bit odd? You're the commander-in-chief. What you should be doing is stripping him of his titles and medals and shit and kicking him out of the military. Dude should not be in that position when he openly said he made a secret phone call to China and told them our strategic plans. Could have caused World War III. What if they had misinterpreted that as being doublespeak? What if they'd said, well, Americans are claiming they won't attack. Maybe they're trying to bait us into doing something, and then they're going to attack us. They're going to blindside us. Quick, troop readiness at maximum levels. Invade Vietnam, invade Taiwan real quick. What if that had happened? Well, that's really going to suck for Joe Biden, because I have a feeling that, despite a lot of partisans that'll say, well, Milley is woke, therefore good. Orange man bad, therefore Milley did the right thing. Yeah, Trump was really going to nuke the United States of America if he didn't get his way. That's reasonable according to some people. I have a feeling that level of madness, that fanaticism, that Trump derangement syndrome, it's more than a syndrome, it's a virulent cancer in these people's deranged minds. I have a feeling that that's beginning to wear off, and that's part of why Biden's having a problem. Look, Trump's absence in public discourse, the fact that he's been banned on all the mainline tech sites is actually doing Biden damage, I think. If Trump were very visible, because he's an upstager, he's a showman. If Trump were still getting televised at his rallies by CNN and MSNBC, other than short clips for the purpose of saying, look at what crazy shit he said, and the rallies were there, and he was allowed on Facebook and Twitter and shit, he'd be constantly upstaging Joe Biden, getting all the attention, and people would be focusing less on what Biden was doing wrong. So everything right now is lining up for Biden to continue slumping in the polls. I mean, at this point, the trajectory is longer term than just Afghanistan. I think the inflation's playing a role. The Milley thing will begin to show up. We'll see what effect that has. The stalling out yet again the third time for his infrastructure bill might have an effect among partisan Dems. Meanwhile, you're trying to get the far left and the Manchin types to agree because you need all of their votes in order to hold the line, and Biden's just having massive, massive problems doing that. So he looks ineffective, he looks stupid in foreign policy, and the economy is falling apart. What more need you have? If things were going this bad under a normal presidency, where the president is not treated with kid gloves and asked repeatedly what kind of ice cream he likes, his approval would probably be below 40 right now. In all honesty, he has improved literally nothing since the day he took office. Now, for the first few months when Biden babies, when the sheep-like bleeding fans said, well, he hasn't been in there very long, give him time, it takes time. He's got to clean up so many poo-poo caca messes from the orange big turd baby. Maybe that worked for partisan voters for a couple of months, but, you're in the middle of September now. It's not March, it's not February, it's getting on there towards a year in the presidency, and nobody has benefited from him being the asterisk president, which once again, was predictable. That's about all. Peace out.